we are. Share screen. Let me find the page here. So there we are. Share screen. Oh, I have to shut that YouTube off, otherwise I'm going to get, it's going to bounce back. So, okay. Oh. Sorry, when I hit YouTube, the YouTube movie starts coming on and it starts bouncing back to us. So, okay, there's the Krishna book. Just as a recap here, Krishna Chandra, would you like to read here from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur? He's explaining who these different, the anarthas that these different demons represent. The snake which attempted?
Yes. The snake which attempted to swallow Nanda Maharaj represents a devotee's inclination in ecstasy to merge with Krishna. As a Vaishnava's happiness continually increases in the process of worship, one sometimes loses consciousness. At that time, the feeling of merging may overcome one. This feeling of merging with the Lord is the snake that swallowed Nanda Maharaj. A practitioner who remains free from this snake will become a qualified Vaishnava. Śaṅkhāsura.
Śaṅkhā.
I'm sorry.
Śaṅkhā, actually, it's Śaṅkhā, right? It means conch shell.
Oh, thank you. Śaṅkhāsura symbolizes the desire to acquire fame and women through the practice of bhakti. This abominable activity is quite common among pseudo-devotees, but real Vaishnavas always avoid the association of such despicable persons.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll find the reading matter at hand here. All right, got it. Share screen. Bhavatrini, would you like to read 2 paragraphs, please?
The pilgrims take bath, worship the deity, and give in charity. They are also recommended to fast one day. They should go to a place of pilgrimage and stay there at least for 3 days. The first day is spent fasting. At night, they can drink a little water because water does not break the fast. The cowherd men, headed by Nanda Maharaj, spent that night on the bank of the Sarasvati. They fasted all day and drank a little water at night. But while they were taking their rest, a great serpent from a nearby forest appeared before them and hungrily began to swallow up Nanda Maharaj. Nanda began to cry helplessly, "My dear son Krishna, please come and save me from this danger. This serpent is swallowing me." When Nanda Maharaj cried for help, all the cowherd men got up and saw what was happening. They immediately took up burning logs and began to beat the snake to kill it. But in spite of being beaten with burning logs, the serpent was not about to give up swallowing Nanda Maharaj.
Wow, Nanda Patni.
At that time, Krishna appeared on the scene. Hang on, am I unmuted? Yeah. Krishna appeared on the scene and touched the serpent with his lotus feet. Immediately upon being touched by the lotus feet of Krishna, the serpent shed its reptilian body and appeared as a very beautiful demigod named Vidyādhara. His bodily features were so beautiful that he appeared to be worshipable. There was a luster and an effulgence emanating from his body, and he was garlanded with a gold necklace. He offered obeisances to Lord Krishna and stood before him with great humility. Krishna then asked the demigod, "You're appearing to be a very nice demigod and to be favored by the goddess of fortune. How is it that you perform such abominable activities? And how did you get the body of a serpent?" The demigod then began to narrate the story of his previous life. "My dear Lord," he said, "in my previous life, I was named Vidyādhara and was known all over the world for my beauty. Because I was a celebrated personality, I used to travel all over in my airplane. While traveling, I saw a great sage named Angira. He was very ugly. And because I was very proud of my beauty, I laughed at him. Due to this sinful action, I was condemned by the great sage to assume the form of a serpent.
Mahabudhi Prabhu?
You can go ahead. I'll just listen.
No, we're each reading 2 paragraphs unless you refuse to read.
I'll just listen. Thank you.
Okay, as you like. Nahush Prabhu, would you like to read?
One should note here that before being favored by Krishna, a person is always under the modes of material nature, however elevated he may be materially. Vidyādhara was a materially elevated demigod, and he was very beautiful. He also held a great material position and was able to travel all over by airplane. Yet he was condemned to become a serpent in his next life. Any materially elevated person can be condemned to be an abominable species of life if he is not careful. It is a misconception that after reaching the human body, one is never degraded. Vidyādhara himself states that even though he was a demigod, he was condemned to become a serpent. But because he was touched by the lotus feet of Krishna, he immediately came to Krishna consciousness. He admitted, however, that in his previous life, he was actually sinful. A Krishna conscious person knows that he is always the servant of Krishna. He is most insignificant, and whatever good he does is by the grace of Krishna and the spiritual master.
We're reading 2 paragraphs each if you'd like to read the next one.
Oh, sure, yeah. The demigod Vidyādhara continued to speak to Sri Krishna. Because I was very proud of the exquisite beauty of my body, he said, I derided the ugly features of the great sage Angira. He cursed me for my sin. I became a snake. Now I consider that this curse by the sage was not at all a curse. It was a great benediction for me. Had he not cursed me, I would not have assumed the body of a serpent and would not have been kicked by your lotus feet, and thus freed from all material contamination.
Very nice. Let's see, it looks like Krishna Chandra Prabhu, you're next in line here.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Or no, actually it was Tom. Tom, you didn't have a chance to read.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, excuse me.
In material existence, 4 things are very valuable: to be born in a decent family, to be very rich, to be very learned, and to be very beautiful. These are considered to be material assets. Unfortunately, without Krishna consciousness, these material assets sometimes become sources of sin and degradation. Despite Vidyādhara's being a demigod and having a beautiful body, he was condemned to the body of a snake due to pride. A snake is considered to be the most cruel and envious living entity, but those who are human beings and are envious of others are considered to be even more vicious than snakes. The snake can be subdued or controlled by charming mantras and herbs, but a person who is envious cannot be controlled by anyone. My dear Lord, Vidyādhara continued, now since I think I have become freed from all kinds of sinful activities, I am asking your permission to return to my abode, the heavenly planet. This request indicates that persons who are attached to fruitive activities, desiring promotion to the comforts of higher planetary systems, cannot achieve their ultimate goal of life without the sanction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is also stated in the Bhagavad Gita that the less intelligent want to achieve material benefits and therefore worship different kinds of demigods, but they actually get the benediction from the demigods through the permission of Lord Vishnu or Krishna. Demigods have no power to bestow material profit. Even if one is attached to material benediction, he can worship Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and ask him. Krishna is completely able to give even material benediction. There is a difference, however, in asking material benediction from the demigods and from Krishna. Dhruva Maharaj worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead for material benediction, but when he actually achieved the favor of the Supreme Lord and saw him, he was so satisfied that he refused to accept any material benediction. The intelligent person does not ask favors from or worship the demigods. He directly becomes Krishna conscious, and if he has any desire for material benefit, he asks Krishna, not the demigods.
Thank you. I'm just trying to let this sink in a little bit here, how Dhruva Maharaj is being pulled into the story here. And I'm just trying to follow the train here. Can someone please help me make the connection here, how we're going from, is it because Vidyādhara had these material desires, that there's some comparison to Dhruva Maharaj because he had material desires? Is that the connection?
It doesn't say.
Okay, I'm just trying to see the segue that Prabhupada's giving from Vidyādhara into.
He has been bringing Dhruva Maharaj up quite often.
Mm-hmm.
Because actually Dhruva Maharaj did worship for material benedictions, therefore it's the comparison is made for Vidyādhara. But right. And then at the end he said when he actually achieved the favor of the Supreme, then what? He saw him, and then what everything he became, he was refused to accept material things. Seemed this as broken pieces of glass. Right. So he made the distinction there. That's basically what it is.
Is it correct that Vidyādhara wanted to go back to the heavenly planets? Was
yes.
That was that was showing that he wasn't. So
he still wanted material aspiration.
That he was not as enlightened as Dhruva Maharaj was.
Right.
Yes?
Well, I guess the point is they were both asking for some kind of material aspect, as it were, and not unalloyed, pure devotional service.
But Dhruva Maharaj refused the material. But then the Nalakuvara and Manigriva, they went back to being Nalakuvara and Manigriva. They went back to their father's kingdom, but they actually became Madhukanta and Snigdhakanta, who narrate all the pastimes of Radha and Krishna in the Gopal Champu.
That was by the association of Narada Muni and following his instructions after he went to the heavenly planets. That's also explained in Gopal Champu.
Right.
Okay, who is reading just now? I'm sorry, I lost track.
Tom just read.
Okay, but did he finish the whole chapter, the whole paragraph? I don't think.
Yeah.
I did 2 paragraphs.
Yeah, he did.
Okay, so then he went down to, he asked Krishna, not the demigods, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Vidyādhara, waiting permission of Krishna to return to the heavenly planet, said, now, because I am touched by your lotus feet, I am relieved from all kinds of material pangs. You are the most powerful of all mystics. You are the original supreme personality of Godhead. You are the master of all the devotees. You are the provider of the planetary systems, and therefore I'm asking your permission. You may accept me as fully surrendered unto you. I know very well that persons who are constantly engaged in chanting your holy name attain release from sinful reactions, and certainly persons who are fortunate enough to be personally touched by your lotus feet are freed. Therefore, I am sure that I am now relieved from the curse of the Brahmin simply by being touched by your lotus feet. In this way, Vidyādhara got permission from Lord Krishna to return to his home in the higher planetary system. After receiving this honor, he began to circumambulate the Lord, and after offering his respectful obeisances unto him, he returned to his heavenly planet. Thus, Nanda Maharaj also became relieved from the imminent danger of being devoured by the snake. And I think it's Krishna. Is it Krishna Chandra that's next in line? Let me have a look here. I'm just going through how the names, how our faces are appearing on the screen. Bhavatrini, and then it's Krishna Chandra, then Bhaktiton. Bhavatrini?
Oh, did Krishna Chandra read?
No, you're actually next in line.
But I read first, and then Krishna Chandra didn't read.
He read about the...
Oh, the Bhakti Vinod. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. The cowherd men who had come to execute the ritualistic function of worshiping Lord Shiva and Ambika finished their business and prepared to return to Vrindavan. While returning, they recalled the wonderful activities of Krishna. By relating the incident of Vidyādhara's deliverance, they became more attached to Krishna. They had come to worship Lord Shiva and Ambika, but they became more and more attached to Krishna. Similarly, the gopis also worshipped goddess Katyayani to become more and more attached to Krishna. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that persons who are attached to worshiping demigods like Lord Brahma, Shiva, Indra, and Chandra for some personal benefit are less intelligent and have forgotten the real purpose of life. But the cowherd men, inhabitants of Vrindavan, were no ordinary men. Whatever they did for Krishna. If one worships demigods like Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma to become more attached to Krishna, that is approved. But if one goes to the demigods for some personal benefit, that is condemned. After this incident, on a very pleasant night, both Krishna and his elder brother Balaram, who are inconceivably powerful, went into the forest of Vrindavan. They were accompanied by the damsels of Rajabhumi, and they began to enjoy each other's company. The young damsels of Raja were very nicely dressed and anointed with pulp of sandalwood and decorated with flowers. The moon was shining in the sky, surrounded by glittering stars, and the breeze was blowing, bearing the aroma of the malika flowers, and the bumblebees were mad after the aroma. Taking advantage of the pleasing atmosphere, both Krishna and Balaram began to sing very melodiously. The damsels became so absorbed in their rhythmical song that they almost forgot themselves. Their hair loosened, their dresses slackened, and their garlands began to fall to the ground.
Thank you. Krishna Chandra Prabhu, and then Tom, and then Nandapatni.
Thank you, Prabhu. At that time, while they were so much absorbed, almost in madness, a demon associate of Kuvera, the treasurer of the heavenly planets, appeared on the scene. The demon's name was Śaṅkhāsura because on his head there was a valuable jewel resembling a conch shell. Just as the two sons of Kuvera were puffed up over their wealth and opulence and did not care for Narada Muni's presence, this Śaṅkhāsura was also puffed up over material opulence. He thought that Krishna and Balaram were two ordinary cowherd boys, enjoying the company of many beautiful girls. Generally, in the material world, a person with riches thinks that all beautiful women should be enjoyed by him. Śaṅkhāsura also thought that, since he belonged to the rich community of Kuvera, he, not Krishna and Balaram, should enjoy the company of so many beautiful girls. He therefore decided to take charge of them. He appeared before Krishna and Balaram and the damsels of Raj and began to lead the girls away to the north. He commanded them as if he were their proprietor and husband, despite the presence of Krishna and Balaram. Being forcibly taken away by Śaṅkhāsura, the damsels of Raj began to call the names of Krishna and Balaram for protection. The two brothers immediately began to follow them, taking up big logs in their hands. Don't be afraid, they called to the gopis. We are coming at once to chastise this demon. Very quickly, they reached Śaṅkhāsura. Thinking the brothers too powerful, Śaṅkhāsura left the company of the gopis and ran for fear of his life. But Krishna would not let him go. He entrusted the gopis to the care of Balaram and followed Śaṅkhāsura wherever he fled. Krishna wanted to take the valuable jewel resembling a conch shell from the head of the demon. After following him a very short distance, Krishna caught him, struck his head with his fist, and killed him. He then took the valuable jewel and returned. In the presence of all the damsels of Vraj, he presented the valuable jewel to his elder brother Balaram. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 33rd chapter of Krishna, Vidyādhara liberated and the demon Śaṅkhāsura killed.
Jai. So here is, does anyone know who did this painting? This is the Lord apprehending Śaṅkhāsura.
No, it's a very nice painting, though.
Yes. it is.
Śaṅkhāsura doesn't look very confident. This is Pushkar Prabhu's version of the Śaṅkhāsura painting, with the jewel on his head.
Very colorful.
And here's the earlier pastime. So if I remember correctly, Krishna gave a kick to the to Vidyādhara, to the serpent body.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes, indeed.
Correct. So if you'll permit me, I have a couple of comments I'd like to make, and I'm only making these comments because I'm looking forward to hearing everyone else's comments. All right. So what I thought was really cool was that Vidyādhara it actually expresses grateful for being cursed due to his pride, and being grateful that Krishna gave him this kick. And I was just thinking about all the times that I've been kicked since trying to become a devotee for the last 46 years, and how I've not always felt gratitude for the kicks that I've received, for the humiliation, for whatever tribulations I've gone through as a result either of my karma or the special mercy of the Lord in trying to rid me of my anarthas, because I will not be able to enter into Krishna's Bhoma Lila until I become, at least achieve anartha nivritti. Well, okay, there's a question. A related question I have. Is bhava enough to go into Krishna's Lila, or does one actually have to come to the level of Krishna prema? And I'll just ask Mahabodhi Prabhu, are you able to put your camera on, or are you doing something right now that you're not able to be on the screen? Okay, thank you. Would you like to say something about, I'm just asking you to unmute right now. So yeah, the first part of my comment is, and I'm putting this out to everyone of you, how to develop that attitude so that when we're chastised or humiliated or whatever experience we go through, we actually feel grateful to Krishna. Thank you, Krishna. Thank you for humbling me like this. Thank you for smashing my pride. Bring it on, Krishna. Bring it on. Sock it to me. That's one part. And then the other part is, does one actually have to come to the level of Krishna prema before one can, because we have to go to Bhoma Lila, Krishna's Bhoma Lila, before entering into Golok, as far as I understand. So, Mahabodhi Prabhu?
Which question you want me to answer?
We'll start with the first one. How to develop that attitude of gratitude towards being smashed.
Pranadapi Sunichena Torapi Sohisnana Amina Manadena Kirtanya Sadahari. So first one has to understand that what is the nature of what we're trying to do. And if one can't take corrections, one needs to be corrected. Just like the spiritual master, he both corrects and gives service, and it's not all roses. Sometimes there's thunderbolt. And for the differences, if we make mistakes, this was like one of the things against the whole idea of Ritvikism, that you can say, oh, well, I accept the spiritual master, but the spiritual master also has to accept you in the sense that what does that spiritual master do? He has to be able to correct the disciple if the disciple is not correct or going off or showing some, signs of difficulty. Then the spiritual master's duty is to correct that disciple. So any person who can't take corrections, he should see in a humble state of mind that Krishna is giving him the opportunity to learn. Now, sometimes, hold on 1 second. I'm in class. My son's here. 1 second. So go on from there. I have to talk to him for a second.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, Bhavatrini, do you have something to say on that, please?
Oh, sure. If I was kicked by Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his Brajnandanandana form, I would be very easily take the kick as a benediction, because I'd be personally in Krishna's presence, and my physical illusory body, which his was a snake at the time, was being touched by the foot of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I think in those circumstances, you have to already be pretty elevated in Krishna consciousness. So he laughed at a sage, and then he got the form of a snake, and then he was face to face with Krishna, who kicked him and personally delivered him from his curse. So for me, I think I would very easily see it as a benediction, because I'd be in the presence of Krishna.
Right.
And hopefully in the presence, just in the presence of Srila Prabhupada, the false ego dissolves.
Mm-hmm. That's the value of association when you're in the presence of someone much greater than you. There's the converse as well, where there are no trees, even the castor oil bush appears to be a big tree, Prabhupada would say.
So, but what Mahabhuti is saying is just, that's what we've been meditating on also, Trinadapi Samichina. And it's that's the goal, for us to be able to see everything as coming from Krishna. Just like when I was in a meeting with Srila Prabhupada, and he was explaining how to become free from envy. And he said, just like Prahlad Maharaj, when something bad came, he thought, oh, here's my Lord, here's Krishna. And when something good came, he thought, oh, here's my Lord, here's Krishna. And I thought it was significant that he said something bad first, to, but that's, what Mahabhuti didn't get to answer your second question. Did you want to go around the panel?
Not yet. I have something I want to respond to you, but since Krishna Chandra is inspired to say something, I don't want to interfere with him. So I'll
thank you, Prabhu.
Comment on the back burner. Go ahead, Krishna Chandra.
What I have to say won't take long. I was inspired to attempt to answer the other question about do you need to be in.
I don't want to go there yet. I don't want to go there yet. Stay on the first part, if you don't mind.
Okay, that was
it all scrambled.
Okay, then that was I don't have anything remarkable.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to Bhavatrini and to Mahabhuti Prabhu by saying, whenever I hear the Śaṅkhāsura verse repeated, I think of two things. I think of how Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur said we should always keep that verse around our neck, which really illustrates how essential it is, like as our life breath. And I also remember that as long as I'm not practicing forgiveness towards others, because to be more tolerant than a tree, I interpret that as being forgiving towards others, more tolerant than a tree, offering all respects to others, not expecting any honor in return, which is humility. So as long as I want to be honored, And as long as I'm not practicing forgiveness consciously, then I will not be able to constantly chant the holy name of the Lord, because I want something other than chanting the holy name of the Lord. I want respect. I want to be treated, I've found myself saying, well, I at least want to be treated like a junior devotee. Like, can't you even treat me like a junior devotee is treated? But actually, when I'm reminded of this verse, I'm thinking, no, I should not even want to be treated like a junior devotee. I mean, I'm not. So that's one thought. Those are some thoughts that run through my head when I hear the Śaṅkhāsura. You were cut off. You had to attend to something at home, Mahabodhi. Did you have something else you wanted to say on that, or were you done?
There's a lot you could say, but you've already said some things. But one of the questions on that particular piece is like when advanced devotees said, "Oh, you just now like reached a kanista," and it's a little bit like Mukunda, who was jumping up in the air after Lord Chaitanya had told him after 1,000 verse he'll come back to Krishna consciousness. So even if someone is very elevated, so we can become a kanista, so at least I've made it to kanista. So they'll see their own advancement really is insignificant. And this is where I mentioned, the other night, where Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, if you really understood your position, how insignificant you are, you probably could not maintain your life. So, but at the same time, there's a level, as you were speaking, of how etiquette goes. So if one is a kanistadakari and he treats everyone, if there's an uttamadakari and a madhyamadakari and a kanistadakari, then not everyone is treated the same. So for one who's a kanistadakari, it's especially for those who are on different levels, they will give respect mentally. Anyone who chants Hare Krishna, whether he's initiated or not, but is trying to follow, he may even be, he may be Hari Nam or something, and he's trying to do that, then we offer our respects. Then it depends how the devotee, what position the devotee's in. Because if the devotee who's in a higher situation offers his respects in the platform to that way, then it'll be taken, this person is equal. So that's not appropriate. So then the one who's initiated, then one offers his Dandavat pranams. And one who's advanced, then one not only offers pranams, but also has to be able to render service. So the Madhyamadakari, he'll know 4 different platforms. Right. For the one, for those who are more advanced, then he'll render service to and try to hear from. Those on the same level, more or less, he'll try to make friends with and associate with. Those on a lower level, he'll try to instruct and help them. And those who are inimical, he'll avoid. So if one doesn't understand the etiquette in dealing with the devotees, like someone may be a junior devotee and he's dealing with a senior devotee, says, well, I know more than him. I don't care if he was initiated 50 years ago, I'm on this level. Then on that platform, it's actually offensive. Even if he thinks, I am so much more greater. And from a knowledgeable position, he may be. But the respect has to be given on the level that, just like Prabhupada told us, we can't criticize his god brothers. We're not allowed to criticize his brothers. He may criticize, but we're not. So similarly, in that same platform the other night was, you can't, when there was getting to be criticized, those of his god brothers and nephews, then our position is not really to do that, because from our level, we would be considered junior devotees, and not knowing that relationship, it would be offensive. So without knowing the etiquette, how we deal with devotees will be understood by our devotional adhikar. So if it, just like the neophyte, he'll say, well, I'm living in a White House and the president's living in the White House, so I'm present. So the conclusion of, misidentification or that someone may feel, I'm initiated, therefore devotional service is over. I've already been initiated. That was the goal. And this leads into your second question when you want to talk about that. But first, the other Prabhu should speak because he was enthused.
Yes. Where's Krishna Chandra?
I'm right here. Yes.
Go ahead, Prabhu. Go ahead. What was your point?
Oh, you had asked about Bhav and Prem about it, and I feel that because of course Bharat Maharaj had fallen from Bhav, I feel that one would have to be in a state of Prem in order to have that association, because they're vulnerable otherwise. Because, for instance, the gopis, they were without hesitation all for Krishna. They would break the rules that, so, it requires this real one-pointed devotion that, as we could see, even as advanced as Bharat Maharaj was, he did not have that in his state of bhav.
Nice point. Nanda Patni, you've been very humble and quiet. Sorry,
No, not humble.
Do you have some comment you'd like to make?
No, I'm happy listening. I don't.
I just want to check in with you that
you're not. That's fine.
That you're not being neglected here.
No.
And let's see, who else is with us now? Nahush, are you happy listening, or do you have a comment or question to throw in?
So far, I'm happy listening. I do agree on the what Prabhuji said about the Bhav and Prem, although I am not advanced in any way. But I do agree in that aspect. And also I've heard many times that when it comes to Bhav, it's like the sun rising, and then you have to kind of wait until you have to get through that. It's a one has to go through that to Krishna Prem. But at the end of the day, there's no loss or diminution. So I'm just keeping myself going with that. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you very much. Mahabodhi Prabhu, you had something more to say, please.
There's to clarify some of the positions the other Prabhu said. Let's look at the first stage is we have to know what the sadhya is. What is the goal?
Right.
So if we're looking at sadhana, there's three different types of bhakti. Okay, there's sadhana bhakti, there's bhav bhakti and prema bhakti. Okay, so the goal of sadhana bhakti is bhav bhakti. So if your goal is not bhav bhakti and you're performing sadhana, it's not one pointed, as the other Prabhu said. Therefore, it's mixed and it's not sufficient. So the level in devotional service, however, bhav is in other words, when one gets to the platform from nista, when he becomes the modes of passion and ignorance have been diffused, then the next stage, which will happen, is ruchi. In that ruchi and the development of ruchi, then taste happens. And with taste happens, then gradually what happens is one starts getting spurtis, starts seeing, Krishna, Radha Krishna, however one's is today, will have some appearance. And at that point, they may start having some remembrance of the pastimes. As it becomes stronger and stronger, that moves into a Sakti, and then finally into Bhav. So as the Prabhu gave the platform of Bharat, that was Leela platform for our benefit, because what was the difference? And Bhav generally is a very elevated platform, but because he associated with a deer and became attached to that deer, therefore he had to come back for 3 births. But in those births, he didn't lose his spiritual understandings. Right. Therefore, as with his Jad Bharat and his other incarnations, where he came back in that advanced platform. And even when he was able to preach to Maharaj Rahugana, who understood his elevated platform. So the difference of Bhav, when it gets to Bhav, then the movement to Prem, actually Krishna becomes your Prem guru. All right, so he will actually instruct you, and explained in the Madhurya Kandamini that by Vishwanath Chakravarti, that from that platform, then that devotee, when you're talking about humility, he'll even become angered with himself that I compared you to a beautiful lotus flower. I compared you to the moon, and you're so much more beautiful. I feel so offensive that I compared you to these mundane things, because in the vision of that devotee, in as prem starts manifesting the heart, when prem actually hits, then it really, at that point, it's really, generally you're not within this body, or at the end of, because this body is very difficult to maintain the ecstatic emotions of prem. So therefore, bhava, from the platform of entering into the pastimes, one may start doing that even gradually, like we heard from Raghunath Das Goswami, even gradually in the platform of Shakti, and then in bhav, and then as bhav gets thicker and thicker, in other words, the spurtis come, and then in between that, there's great hankering. When will come back? When will come back again? Just like in Vilapa Kusmanjali of Raghunath Das Goswami, who's practicing even though Raghunath Bhakti, practicing his sadhana in that form. Therefore, he was going from pastime to pastime, pastime. So he was able to enter that. So it's not, but to enter into that, also in entering into Bhamloka, or wherever Krishna is manifesting this platform, not all of the personalities were completely purified. That's why they went there. It's like some of the gopis we were reading about earlier in the whatever class was on Monday or whatever day that was. They were Vedic scholars, and so they came there. They had to associate with the Nitya Lila Sakis and gopis to become purified. So that once they became purified in Boma Vrindavan, then they're able to go back to the spiritual world. So not everyone is at 100% platform of prem bhakti that get there. They're sufficient enough to be able to be brought there because of their devotional service, but they also have to associate with the Nitya Lila residents, whether it's the gopis or the cowherd boys or the elderly relatives of Krishna, to be able to the last bastions of material conceptions be removed in the fire of devotional service and fire of love.
Interrupting. So what's the difference in the name between the Nitya Lila gopis, that I don't want to call them lesser gopis, but you're making the point that they also need to be anugatya, correct? They also need to get some more training. So what is that second level of gopis called if they're not Nitya Lila?
They're different. They're just like those that come into the spiritual world, they're sadhana siddhi. Okay, they've come by the practice of their sadhana. They became perfected. When they become perfected, Krishna doesn't see them as Nitya Sakis and sadhana. So he sees them as parakars. Now they're associates. But indeed, those in Boma Vrindavan, they have to gopis and others. They have to associate. By their association of the Nitya Lila gopis, therefore they became trained up. Just like those that there were some that came to when Krishna was playing the flute, and they came to the forest. So those who came to the forest had some type of association with the Nitya Lila Sakis. Okay, and because of their association, now they're making purification so they could come. But those didn't at that time. Most of them, they had to stay in their homes. They were stopped by their fathers and husbands and things. So as we understand the science more, then it becomes more clear about these different things. Hopefully that happens.
Thank you. Yeah, wow, what an amazing answer. Bhavatrini, did some thoughts pop into your brain while you were listening to Mahabodhi Prabhu? Can't hear you. You're muted, I think. Can't hear you.
Well, I was wondering if Mahabodhi could speak on the association of the novice gopis with the Nitya gopis. Gurudev was saying how the reason Krishna stole the clothes of the gopis and accepted all of them was because their cloth was mixed with the Nitya gopis. So I don't remember the references or the details of that, but could you speak on that a little bit?
I think you're muted.
I unmuted myself. I'm trying to make it simple for those who haven't heard this before. The nature of the Nityasiddha gopis is they're eternal. They're eternally in that position. They never come to this. They never have a material body. They came to this material world as in Goloka, but they're not coming upward from a jiva soul and becoming purified to then come to the platform of devotional service in their eternal spiritual form. They're always in their spiritual form, and they're always pure-hearted in their devotional, all their devotional moods. So therefore, those aspirants, which all of us are, and those who have aspired and have obtained the births, for instance, as a gopi, they'll be born and married under, especially for Parakyaras, born and married under another gopa, and in this platform, their service and the heightened level, because each one of the different levels of devotional service, from Anubhav all the way up to Mananakya Mahabhav, they're different. There are different levels of love, and these different levels of praying are being exemplified and are shown like immediately, like fire showing from their loving examples from the Nitya Lila. So by their association, all the moods of love rise up from all the different levels of the different anurag, rag, all these different levels upward to get to the point where one can associate in that platform into which Radha and Krishna will accept those services based on their loving devotion to him. So simply put, that when they're in Vrindavan, they're now getting trained. They'll know what is their form. They'll know who are they married to, what their village came, what is their service. Now, in that, they'll have the opportunity to associate with the Nitya Siddha gopis who are actually managing all these things under the service of Radharani. For those wanting to go in Parakya, for those in Swakya, then they'll get a chance to associate with those devotees there that are having that kind of relationship, because they're the Swakya, then Krishna, they see Radha and Krishna's married. Then there's also format there, some from the wives, they made the wives of Krishna, which are in Dwarka. So there's different relationship, but those following our particular sampradaya, and those relationships, they'll get a chance to associate with the Nityasiddha gopis, the Nityasiddha gopas, and those different relations, so that they can perfect their own loving relationship with Radha and Krishna. That's the simplest way to put it.
Does that answer your question, Bhavatrini?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to bring another point, please. So I found it really interesting how this demigod worship in this chapter is being discouraged. Was it mentioned in the Śaṅkhāsura pastime as well, or only in the Vidyādhara pastime? Does anyone recollect?
It was just mentioned in the Vidyādhara pastime now.
So I'm thinking generally when we think of demigods, we think of these otherworldly personalities like, I'm not worshiping Lord Indra. I'm not worshiping Lord Varuna. I'm not, but I was just thinking how there are personalities in our current Kali Yuga society who are multi-billionaires and how they're kind of like, you could say, modern day demigods, so to speak. I mean, probably more like asuras than demigods, but I'm just saying it's possible even for very advanced devotees to fall prey to honoring people who have a lot of power, a lot of influence, a lot of money, And it's just, I think that's relevant to devotees as well, that we have to be careful not to succumb to receiving favors from such people, because it could compromise our participation in pure devotional service. Do you have a thought on that, Mahabodhi Prabhu?
Yes. So what to speak of Lord Chaitanya himself would not meet with Maharaj Prachaparudra, who was the king at that time, so that he had to be propitiated and helped by the other devotees, because his position as a charya and as a sannyasi would not associate with materialistic men, especially with king, who's known, who are basically known for enjoyment and these kinds of things. But in this particular age, this particular time, especially, it's mentioned that these material things, both name, fame, adoration, profit, distinction, these things are unwanted, in the fact that this pratishta, which is a Sanskrit term for that type of honoring. This is considered by Raghunath Das Goswami as donkey in his Manasa Shiksha.
You're speaking specifically of the honor that devotees may be inclined to give to a big man because he may be,
or receiving. Now the next stage is, because someone has money, because money is like the honey, right, in the material world. So then by supplicating oneself to, he's a billionaire, he's got $5 billion and he's going to pay for my food for life program in my hospital, and he's going to help me give donations to the president and all these things like this, that such persons are acting out of the realm of devotional service, especially a sannyasi, which why I gave the first point by Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya would refuse to even meet a king. In recent times, Prabhupada would not meet unless they came to see him. And most recent times, Narayan Maharaj, who was next door to Obama, and they're, we can arrange an appointment with him, and he says, no, I will not go. If he can come here, but I will not. We don't go.
You're reminding me of the past time when Prabhupada was in Paris, and I think the governor or the president, some big man was coming to see Prabhupada, and the ambassador or the representative of the big French leader, I think, leaned over to Yogeshwar or maybe Jyotirmayi, whoever was there, to say, now it's time for Prabhupada to stand up for this person. And Prabhupada said, I'm just paraphrasing, I have to stand for who? Prabhupada would not do it.
No. So the difference is this tendency to supplicate oneself some material wealth and honor, distinction, any of these kinds of things is really a semblance of lack of their devotional service and advancement. Because the devotee who's actually tasting devotional service, who's actually relishing on the platform of devotional service, and has obtained the platform of bhav, what to speak of praying, then they're not interested in anything material. There's nothing. There's no material amount of money or whatever that can be their desire from. Let's take the
perks, like the perks that they could
get. So let's look at Sanatana Goswami. So in Sanatana Goswami's example, he only desired that there should be a temple because I'm not able to feed my Madan Mohan, very nicely. He wanted more than just the chapatis with a little bit of salt, and that's all they could offer. So, yet he had a touchstone, and a touchstone he kept in the garbage. Right now, with a touchstone, there's unlimited wealth. Anything iron you teach, you can have. Okay, go around Vrindavan for a few gates or something like that. Touch a little bit, and you got more wealth and you'll need probably for the rest of your lifetime. Did he do that? No, he kept it. He kept it in the garbage. And then when a person it came to me who had sent him, you need to go to Sanatana Goswami. He has all this wealth. And so when the person was asking for wealth, there's at one point he said, I'll give you the holy name, but he really wasn't that wasn't so excited for a person, because he was looking for this material opulence, which the devotee is not inclined like that. So what did he do? Yes, there's a touchstone over there, you can take it. And then that person took the touchstone, so happy, I've got this wealth. But he said, he was thinking, why did he keep it in the garbage?
Right.
What kind of wealth? If he's keeping a touchstone in the garbage, he must have something more wealthy. So he came back and he asked him, do you have anything, you have better? He says, yes. He said, well, then what? First, you must take that touchstone, you throw it into the river, so which means what? Exemplify, get rid of these material desires and these material interest in your, in wealth and material sense gratification and honor, all these things that come with it. And then he gave him the holy name and, gave mercy on him so that he can make advantage of it. So if we're seeing devotees that are kowtowing and bowing and offering all done to simply, those not fit, especially some of them are actually demons, right? Let's be realistic. They're asuras, and others may be not, they may not be demons. They may, but what happened, let's use the example again of Sanatana Goswami. Then one day we wanted it. What happened by Krishna's arrangement, this big salt, merchant, he got stuck on the sandbar right out in front of, on the Jamuna, right out in front of, Madan Mohan temple.
Right.
Which wasn't a temple then, but that where Madan Mohan was, and so it got stuck, and he came, and they were told only this one sage can alleviate that. So he approached Sanatana Goswami, and by Sanatana Goswami's desire, the boat became unstuck, and that was it. And so the man said, "How can I repay you?" And Sanatana Goswami wasn't looking for anything. Could have asked for anything, but the salt merchant, following the internal moods given to him by Lord Krishna, he built the Madan Mohan temple for the deities and Sanatana, but it wasn't the request of Sanatana Goswami. So there are some examples of what to do instead of our most recent fellows who become sold out to anyone who can give them large donations. So therefore their advancement in devotional service because of that cannot be very advanced at all.
Thank you.
There must be a fine line. Can I make a comment?
Yes,
There must be a fine line with that, because of course it was Srila Prabhupada, so it was a different example really when he asked Shyamasundar to ask George Harrison to contribute
$19,000 to print Krishna.
Yeah, well, then a large sum of money, but I
he
guess
was just giving them service. So the difference is when, in other words, if you have the ability to do service and you're using what you have to do that, that's fine. Just like Prabhupada had Guru Kripa Maharaj in Japan, in Yasodananda, and they practically, with their donations and their book distribution in Japan, practically built the Krishna Balaram temple.
Right.
All right. And now we're seeing Ambarish Maharaj, who happened to be born in a wealthy, merchant's family, the Ford family, is using his farms, his ability to help build the Mayapur project. So devotional service by devotees and trying to do whatever there was one Tirumangalai Alwar in one of the Alwars in South India. He was considered an incarnation of, was it Sudarshan Chakra or the bow, the axe. Anyway, he was an incarnation of one of Lord Vishnu's weapons.
What was his name?
Tirumangalai Alwar.
Okay.
And what his devotional service was, he would go out to all the caravans that were crossing in South India. At that time, all the big merchants would go in these big, huge caravans across there, and he'd rob them of all the gold. He was just like, Robin Hood. He would just steal all these gold and all their wealth, and then when he came back, all the gold and stuff. If you go to the Sri Rangam temple in the city, the Ranga Kshetra. If you go there, the dome is all made of gold, and all that gold was all that gold was taken from Tim Mangalai, robbing all the rich merchants who were coming and giving it to Krishna. So
it's amazing. It's amazing the Mughals never conquered that temple. Amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So because Vishnu's there, I mean, he wasn't going to let them conquer it. And similarly, there's stories also for Venkateshwar in Tirupati. So it doesn't mean that the donations can't be given, and it doesn't mean the devotee can do many interesting things on behalf of Krishna, if Krishna sanctions it.
Right.
Sanctions, but the devotee is not pining for wealth. The only person pining for wealth that I was aware of, openly in devotional service, legitimately, was Yudhisthira Maharaj. Yudhisthira Maharaj, what he said, I want to become the richest devotee. I want everyone to know how wealthy he is, because he said, you're known, Krishna, you're known, that everyone who follows your path, you become penniless beggars, right? So I want to show also that you can also be the master of all the, all the richest persons. So I want to be very rich as a king and show that you're also our Lord, not just that everyone becomes a penniless beggar that follows your service, because we become penniless beggars. Why? Because we want devotional service and not material opulence. So those pining for material opulence, that means what? Then their inclination toward devotional service is not very strong. It's been derailed for material name, fame, profit, adoration, or distinction, or all of them.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask a question about Tirumangalai Alvar, because I'm thinking, in the name of for devotion for Krishna's service, a devotee could take up the service of becoming a bank robber so he can give all the wealth to Krishna. But I'm thinking what comes into play there is that we should not imitate the great Mahatmas, but we should take the instruction. Would you say that's what's applicable in that case? Yeah.
If you happen to be the personal Sudarshan Chakra or the personal acts of Vishnu, then you can pretty much do, whatever your master says, right? And whatever to do anything for service, just like the gopis.
Right.
They would do anything in the love of service. When Krishna had a headache, right? And he went to all the different people, to put his headache out. They'll go, no, I will give the dust for my feet. Are you kidding? I'll go to hell. And he went to all the residents of Dwarka and the queens and no way, I'm not going to spend my life in hell. If I do this, is an offense to Krishna. But immediately what happened? He spoke to the gopis. Immediately they start getting dust off their feet and just into these big, now with Gopi Chand, which we put on our foreheads, right? And he's putting on this dust, and then Nardwani asked, aren't you frightened? He goes, no, if this saves Krishna's headache from him, whatever happens to us, that is it. So that is the strength of their devotion. So,
Jiva Mukta, thank you very much for coming, Prabhu. Obeisances to you. Do you have any thoughts on anything you've been hearing? You've been very humble and silent there. Go on, please.
I'm just soaking in the nectar. It's just wonderful, wonderful, examples that were given, and it's, I think, very, very relevant as well. That these devotees establish an example of how they're not swayed. I think the argument that could be given, though, is that they're doing it in service for Srila Prabhupada. That they're cultivating, for example, you have a life membership program. And the devotees in Bombay who started it went under Prabhupada's supervision, went to all these rich people, right?
Right.
They went to a lot of these rich people, businessmen and so on. The purpose was to get them to give money.
Yeah.
So the idea was that they would start by becoming members, and they would give whatever it was. I don't know what the amount was that they would give, but there was different levels of membership. And ultimately they were a resource, right? They were a source of revenue for the temples.
Yeah. Also, the life membership program was there as a means to expand book distribution because everyone would get a set of books.
Yes.
Exactly.
So
Sorry to interrupt.
But if you look at the people that were being targeted, it was very, very wealthy, influential people.
Right.
Not
Like
all.
not the G one.
not
But-
all. Because, I mean,
Mahabali,
many, because I was managing Bombay, so I can speak from a knowledge of position. There were many devotees. There are many devotees that some obviously were of wealth, and those were targeted. You know, Giriraj usually would take those, or Sridhar Swami often, or Haridas would take. But then there were other devotees that came to the center, came to the temple, that were shopwallas, and part of that thing was to engage everyone in service, to give them books, and at that particular time, membership was because, how did they participate with us? Because unlike other temples and stuff like that who already had large congregations, we started out with just like 300 people, and gradually we went over millions of people. But it wasn't all just, that the problem, like what we saw in the West also, we all took it as economic. We're all going to pick. We're all just getting money. So the emphasis when Prabhupada was training was actually engaging everyone in service. And the donations when he was here wasn't as high as what we saw later once we became more known and more focused. And part of it also everything wasn't geared to where just we're hitting it, the economics from membership. Membership was there, but we would get donations, much higher than even what we got from membership, even to the deities or to programs that would come into the membership or come into the different devotees who would be able to take funds, by rendering service and giving the opportunities. The deities would have a new outfit. We had people, that were developing, that donated altars and donated deity paraphernalia and donated land and we would every feast, different people would donate to different feasts. And so the engagement was to engage so many people, not just what we think, oh, everyone's going out to pick, we're just doing money. Because I
wasn't saying that we were just that the target was just the rich people, but the point is that that they definitely were an important component of that.
But you answered your own question. Under Prabhupada's guidance.
Mm-hmm.
So the program started under guidance. If you just decide to go rob rich banks, and give the money to Krishna, that you can't say you're under anugatya unless Super Soul directed me from eternally to go rob these banks. Then you might be, you might want to confirm that with a senior devotee or something. But
I certainly.
There's anugatya, which means under direction, which is also important to recognize.
Jivan Mukta, go ahead, please.
No, I agree with that, but we could say, and I'm just saying it because it is such an important component of what ISKCON is doing, is that the whole life membership program, which we could say that is, it certainly is still, prevalent as, in ISKCON as one of their preaching programs, is still going on. So it was initiated by Srila Prabhupada. So it is under Prabhupada's guidance. It is under his, authority and recommendation. So they're just continuing. Now, I'm just saying, I'm not saying that devotees aren't or may not be, attracted and become, maybe unduly affected by the wealth, but at the same time, approaching these really, really wealthy members of society was something that did go on before. So it's not something that, is just, concocted. It's something that definitely was authorized by Srila Prabhupada. How the devotees who are approaching these individuals are affected by it, that's a different thing. How the relationship is developed, that's a different thing. That's an individual.
Yes, we also did make the Birlas to the GBC, or they influenced whether or not, what types of services can be done or should be done, like to someone buying their way into a leadership role in devotional service.
That's
and
different.
There was all okay. So that's a lot of these things what we're talking about, current day situations where large amounts of money are being taken, and it's like buying, but it's like having a lobbyist, right, in the federal government, and by those large amounts, therefore I'm obligated to pass your legislation, right, because I'm taking money from you. And that's essentially, we recognize that as not part of a devotional service, yet some institutions are completely entangled with that, so much so that spiritual understandings and spiritual regulations are set aside to propagate some of these individuals' desires if they want to get the big bucks that they're offering to do this. And that is not appropriate. And also, one thing about membership, the membership program also became a failure, because instead of serving the members, we became taking from the members. The beginning part was serving and engaging them. So that had to be again reborn. And I don't know if it completely got reborn, but at some points in the 80s, it became, to the point where we're collecting, and then people would come to stay. We wouldn't have a place for them. We didn't go, and they were being not treated very kindly. And so our service attitude became deficient because we took everything as just an economic platform. And that's the danger for not having leadership that recognizes what is spiritual, what is material, and can guide the different activities. If there's no one guiding you, then that's a failure of the management. The management has responsibility for those people underneath them to understand how they appropriately should act. But if there's no advanced devotee training them, then people do whatever they want and think that's spiritual because I'm chanting Hare Krishna and I may be giving 70% of it to the temple. I'm only taking 30% for my own maintenance. See, that becomes, and that kind of platform led into what we have now. The management, what you're seeing now, is everybody's an employee. So bhakti is being removed. Everyone's an employee. So you're not a devotee in a temple. I'm just giving some examples. You're not a devotee in the temple anymore. You are you're an employee. Therefore, if you don't follow the necessary jump to high when I say it, then you can be fired. Even though if you're in good standing with devotional service, you may not agree with the particular leadership, but that's how people are being controlled by the economic platform. And that is also not Prabhupada's platform. And that's going on currently today in a majority of a lot of temples in particular association. Some.
I'd just like to jump in for a second. Yeah, I've heard it when I visited the United Kingdom in 2015. One devotee came up to me and he said, Prabhu, mission drift. I'm concerned about mission drift. I have over 200 signatures, Prabhupada's disciples. So much emphasis is given to the Hindu community, specifically the Gujarati community, because they're the most wealthy ones, and the Sikhs get ignored, and these different ones get ignored. And we're not even really focusing on the Western community, which is what, Prabhupada, of course, now there's so many members of the Indian community that are in the United Kingdom. So it's kind of hard to distinguish, we're not going to be biased. Oh, you're an Indian. Well, you already know about Krishna. We are only after the Western people. But once upon a time, we only had Western devotees in the temple. And then unfortunately, after the Guru wars, so many devotees got driven away. And then it was the Indians. Prabhupada said the Indian community are our greatest allies. So in one sense, you can say they've saved ISKCON, because they've, helped to pay our expenses since so many Western devotees were made less welcome. But then you've got the Krishna West appearing. The problem with ISKCON is, it's become too Hinduized. The Indians are having too much say as temple councils. They dictate to the temple presidents, if the temple even has a temple president, how things should be run according to their understanding. But I wanted to make a comment about Birla. Tamal Krishna Maharaj had been speaking to Prabhupada about approaching the Birlas, as Jivan Mukta said earlier, about approaching, devotees like Nataji, those who are, very well-to-do, and how they could give, very substantial donations. And Prabhupada told Tamal Krishna Maharaj, don't ask him for a cent. Just give. It was the same kind of instruction that was told to Shyamasundar about George Harrison. Just give the calendars, give the books, give prasad, whatever you can give. And then at one point, Prabhupada told Tamal Krishna Maharaj to approach Birla for a very substantial donation. So it was interesting to see, how Prabhupada was a nickel and diming. If you're going to ask a donation, you ask a substantial one, but only after you've given so much and showing them that, we care about you, we love you. Now, would you like to reciprocate by helping us to build our temple? Those are just some thoughts I wanted to throw out there. If anyone wants to respond.
There's a question from Nitya there.
Okay, she's saying, what is the reason of failure of membership program? I think Mahabudhi addressed that. How to engage maximally people in book distribution. And also comment from Baba Trini, I don't want to spend my time on management kata. Maybe I'm in Maya, but I'm leaving. Difficult to find the balance all the time. Sorry if I'm failing here as a moderator.
What's this question? How to engage maximally people in
everyone in book distribution? What do you, Nitya, can you rephrase that, please? Are you speaking specifically of engaging our congregation? Is that what you're saying? I'm assuming it's not just the temple devotees, but you mean the larger ISKCON?
It's about journal people, journal population, including devotees and non-devotees.
I've watched Vaisheshika do that amazingly at our Toronto temple. He just mobilized. Well, one thing I saw him do from the Sunday feast lecture seat is he would get our Toronto temple is 98% all Indian community, a few Russians, a few Westerners, but not much. And he got people to sponsor, like, I don't know, what was it, like 1,000 boxes of Bhagavad Gitas, 2,000 boxes? I can't even remember. I mean, our book distribution shot up. He would get people to sponsor like 100 books at a time.
Yeah.
I've never seen that kind of book distribution before. It was like, it took book distribution to a whole other level. And then an hour away from me, an hour and a half away, Subal Vilas's family and his son Indriyesh and daughter Minakshi, they're putting Prabhupada's Gitas in all the hospitals and all the universities and all, you name it, they're putting books for free because they've already been paid for and sponsored. So I don't know if that helps to answer your question, Nitya.
She could look at Vaisheshika under his Facebook is Fan the Spark, and he trains people in book distribution. And they have a wonderful community in Silicon Valley that go door to door. They have a program where they have groups of children that go. Very difficult to turn that down, where it's actually a group of children at the door. And he's written a book all about book distribution, which is called Our Family Business. Right. And it's a very instructional read because he's interviewed devotees over a long arc of time about their experiences in book distribution. And he's just been in London giving some wonderful inspirational talks on this.
He calls the devotees weekend warriors. He gets the actual congregation to all commit to going out. Oh, he has what's called monthly Sankirtan Festival, MSF. And he gets everyone to go on Harinam. You've had some of this experience, Chikarani?
I have been doing it. So we have been doing it in Rochester area from 6 months. So we have a MSF WhatsApp group and we share all the, like every month there is some kind of topic. Like, so now there is Gita Divas. Before that, there was donate a village or something like that. So every time the campaign motive is different. And we also read our family business. So basically we have a group of like 5 families and we read the book every day, but we only read for like 15 minutes, but we read every day at a particular time in a conference call, so that while we are doing this, we are also kind of like learning how to do it. And we have approached the grocery stores in Rochester area. Like we keep approaching other places also, like Walmart and libraries, but some of them don't give us permissions because we are
Permissions for what?
for book distribution, because they tell us that they can't give permissions to publishing companies. And we are not registered as a corporate in Rochester, so we are not NGO here, so we are never so they don't consider us as non-profit because we are not registered. So for that we have to get incorporated.
And when you're talking about book distribution, you're talking about putting out a table in front of Walmart, for example?
So we take everything, like we put some Prabhupada bhajan and music, and we also put Prabhupada's picture, and we put all the...
Actually, ISKCON is incorporated. You don't have to have a local incorporation because ISKCON's national. Even though you have local corporations, it's also a national corporation, 501c3, just so that you're aware. I mean, I don't want to take away from all the different things that people were saying here already, but having been part of Srila Prabhupada's SWAT team as the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust Library Party, there's another methodology I'd like to say to Nityalila that may be what we've heard right here is sort of engaging mass devotees, mass people from wherever. But there's another format also. Prabhupada had us read his books and being able to explain. Part of Bhakti Tirtha Swamis and myself and some of the other devotees on our party, some of them are your GBCs now actually, were to actually speak to very intelligent people and be able to answer their questions and being able to imbibe the moods that we have in our hearts into. And he had told us it's not so much volume, we got to distribute millions, it's also quality. So if you spend some time, I remember Vishnu John used to go out and bring 10 people back to the temple every day from just going out in Harinam. But other part, when we go out and he had us, for instance, he had me speaking to governors, he had me speaking to professors and to senators and to all these different people, not only make friends with them, but also explain what we're doing. And we found out that was very profitable and then also in another program, Compatible. And I'll give you this example. In Alachua, in Gainesville, way before the Alachua Temple now, there was a Gainesville temple at the University of Florida, and they would serve prasadam by the thousands and thousands with no cost, whatever. And so many people that I've run into in 40 years after that, I remember they're judges and they're lawyers and they're all sorts of different.
You fed me when I was a poor student.
When I was a poor student,
yes,
I survived on taking, sharing meals with you. And so
even Steve Jobs said that.
Steve Jobs used to walk across the San Jose to go to the Sunday feast.
Right.
So
Wow.
so the
Wow.
difference really in book distribution is not the methodology. Methodology is a way to engage the devotees in how to do this. And it's appreciative because, Vaisheshika used to, go to the airports and do stuff. But that's not the only way. Prabhupada was actually, he said, if you make one college student, a devotee, it's like making 100 devotees. He actually said that. So if you can, if you're in a situation, which I understood, think from your last meeting that what you were, and if you're in charge of different doctors and different things, then bringing those people along a little bit. What are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, we're vegetarians and we following this literature, and this is how we think of God without any pressure, but speaking gradually, you'll see that this makes an dents in their lives. And you will also see that many people will appreciate you more. They'll appreciate more because they say, well, this person's very dedicated even to their own philosophy and religion. So when you give them something, then chances are they will actually read it and try to understand it, rather than so many, and I'm not depreciating this, but so many books were given to someone outside of a Walmart or a Kmart or something, and you go 10 feet away and they're thrown in the trash or like this.
But then there was a custodian, there was a concierge at O'Hare, I remember, and he used to take them out of the trash and sell them back to the devotees at 50 cents.
Yeah. But also we found out there were some bums. I don't know how else to say it. There were some indigent persons. Homeless. Sorry, there was indigent persons who didn't have any money or anything, and they were drinking, but somehow or other they came across these books and they read it, they gave up drinking and they joined the temple. So you never know where the books are going, but the interest of the desire, Prabhupada would have so much appreciation if you actually read the books and you could preach on the strength of the books rather than, here, hey, do you have change? I'm going to give you a 20. And then we've got some kind of line where we give them 5 back and take the 10 and say, is that okay? These kinds of things actually made our movement into somewhat shambles. They really put a lot of people against it. But if you speak now and they see you in a professional situation and they realize that you're intelligent, and they, because before their idea of Krishna consciousness was just sort of ragtag, 1960s people wearing different colored, dhotis and kurtas and socks. So it looked really dysfunctional. So they thought, that was in the early part of the 60s. But then as we matriculate, and the devotees are expected to actually understand their philosophy and be able to present it in such a way that intelligent people can take it. So that's also satisfying in meeting. If you can't do 10,000 books or whatever, engage everyone in the temple to do it, then everyone should be able to talk to their family members, their relatives, their friends, and being able to, present Krishna consciousness in a friendly way, to the context that you individually make. And that's also very satisfying to Srila Prabhupada and our whole Gaudiya Guru line.
Does that answer your question? Thank you very much, Mahabodhi Prabhu. Does that answer your question, Nityalila?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
You're already doing this. Nityalila has friends who are Muslims. But because she's a nice devotee, they like her, and because of their affection and attachment to her, they're gradually becoming attached to Krishna without even realizing it, right? Kinda.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. I was just.
Well, I said at least they become favorable. They may not all become devotees, but they may become favorable. So in that way, service at some point in time, they'll be more likely to render some favorable service or some favorable, we can go to them for an approval for something or something like that, and they feel kindly. So you should be encouraged in that. So that's one of the reasons I spoke, because often that does not get presented, because the mass of devotees did, general book distribution, and only, I would say, a select few, or fewer than that, let's just say, would do, trying to present Krishna consciousness to the intellectual class. So, that's also was very much appreciated by Prabhupada. And I was waiting for when you contact me, because I was going to set up some things for if you still want,
Yeah, the limitation. Yeah, may I say something?
Please.
The limitation for us is we can't arrange any exhibitions or stalls or booths near external areas. I mean, grocery stores or libraries. We can only arrange whenever there is some festivity or near temple areas. So that is limitation for us.
There's special mercy there, though. Let me tell you another story. I don't want to. I'm sorry, but Prabhupada was very specially kind to those who preached in areas like the Middle East, into where, like, we went into into Eastern Europe, the communist countries, and certainly Pakistan would be considered, like, at that time, where we were going when Atreya Rishi and others were going into Tehran in Iran and Iraq and preaching there, were also under great difficulty. So under the limitation where no one's in the Islamic world, you're really not supposed to, preach outside of Islam. Then, the fact that you got, a grant, the fact that you're able to distribute in festivities that you have in your local area without people getting killed is in itself is a wonderful thing. So, Prabhupada would have special mercy for the devotees in those situations. So you should take shelter of that as well.
Yeah. And I appreciate the idea of involving doctors and influential people in distribution campaigning. That would be enhancing the impact over general population.
Prabhupada said masses and classes. He said that it's important to preach to both, not just to the classes, but to focus also on the masses. Whatever Vidyādhara charati shreshtas tatarivitaragana sayat pramanam kurute lokastaranuvartate, whatever actions performed by a great man, common men will follow in their footsteps, and whatever standard he or she sets by their example, the whole world will pursue. But you're already doing this. Who are these people? You have major government leaders who, like, I don't know if you want to mention it online or not, but
yeah.
You have key people that are favorable.
Yes, very favorable. Yeah.
Even though the local management there kind of sidelined you, it's important to keep those relations.
But we will go on. Yeah.
I wouldn't worry about.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying that these strategic directions and steps should be continued, and we'll go on to pursue more leaders of our society, including government officials, doctors, professors, educationists. And this year I was actually thinking yesterday that it's again time for Gita Jayanti. I should think about involving people and
yes.
Yeah, so some strategic campaigning I should launch. I was just thinking with my team of Sankirtana. Yesterday we were brainstorming, and that's why I requested advice from all of the devotees here.
Yes, in Toronto, when we do the Gita Jayanti, we read the whole Bhagavad Gita over, I think it takes roughly, 2 to 3 hours or something for everyone to read it together. And I think they're only reading the English. Maybe for you it would be Urdu or Sindh. I don't know.
Yeah.
But also at that time, that's when Prabhu would give his pitch from the Vyasa-san, and so many thousands of Gitas would get sponsored, so then they could go out freely. Because people do. I mean, the people who are working in the world, they don't have the time to distribute the books, but they can give donations, which would help sponsor the books, so that they could go out freely into society.
Yes.
So that's one strategy for that, and that needs to start being advertised now. I don't know what the date is for Gita Jayanti. Does anyone know for this year? Does anyone know?
25th. I felt it happens every year on 25th December.
Does it?
Yeah.
25th of December, Christmas Day?
Yeah, Christmas Day. Yeah, I was also very surprised when I got to know about this. That is the Christmas Day.
I thought it was
Buddha's,
before.
That's Buddha's birthday. Jesus was actually born in the spring. So that the whole history of that was that because at that time it was seeming to be a pagan holiday, as Buddhist holiday,
Right.
they wanted to make it in December, but actually Jesus was born in the springtime. For all those Christian historians out there.
I've also heard that was a Wiccan or pagan.
Yeah,
festival.
a pagan festival. That I wanted to say one thing to Nitya Leela if I can, and that I would not be discouraged by whoever the current leadership is that doesn't actually understand the terrain of land or doesn't respect what's been done there previously. I would not really give a lot of attention to it. And if need be, work around it, because preaching from the heart in a knowledgeable area is much more important than following some authoritative,
bureaucratic
government structure that's not meant for, that doesn't understand how to preach locally. So Prabhupada would always, he disbanded the GBC off, a few times because of they're not following appropriate directions. The GBC is actually meant to encourage that people follow the regular platforms and follow the instruction. It's not meant to be a megalithic management structure where no one else but them decide on things. So I'm talking as an old devotee who they probably wouldn't want me to say that, but it's the truth. It's the truth. So that's how Prabhupada set it up.
If Nitya Leela doesn't mind me,
they should be.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. Excuse me.
No, go on.
I was going to say, I hope Nitya Leela
go ahead.
Doesn't mind me quoting her, but she's expressed to me when I said, okay, I've got a Chitananda and Subhabalas and this one and that one to give Zoom conferences to your wonderful congregation. She said, well, ever since my brother was demoted to vice president and taken out of being president, and ever since, and as she felt offended that her brother was just phoned at 11 o'clock at night and taken out by the local GBC's administration. And she can't reach the GBC administration because they intercept her communication. So she said, well, basically she was reluctant to organize any Zooms because she would be seen almost like as a traitor, that she's not following the local management. And I said, are you kidding, Prabhupada? You don't need to have permission to go and organize conferences on Krishna consciousness. She was saying, no, that's how it is here. You can't do anything without getting the blessings coming down from the top levels of management. And
that's not the top.
Oh,
that's not the top.
My God.
The top actually comes from Prabhupada and from Guru and Krishna.
Thank you.
It's not. And so if there's a hindrance of preaching based on you're in my zone and you have to be my disciples or things like that, that's not appropriate. Okay.
I think maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, Nitya Leela, but are you a little fearful about being ostracized, that you'll be rejected? You're not considered to be, cooperating, and therefore you will lose all standing in your community if you don't get the permission of the DGO and the GBC and the regional secretary. And am I understanding you correctly?
Yeah, initially it was in mind, but later on we just left every single obstacles or bottlenecks affecting our life. We just left aside, and we are now focusing on activities, contributions, efforts which we can bring certain changes in society. So that's our motto should be. Management comes and go, mindsets are different, but we should not bother much, and we should focus on seva. That is very important. Yeah.
Thank you.
Very wonderful. Yeah, that's the key. So it may take a little bit while, but actually, if anyone's inhibiting to that, then they're not your leaders in the first place.
Exactly.
But people are very innocent. They become very fearful and kind of kicked off from organization, and at initial stage we were also, yeah.
But they're not there, right?
Yeah, of course. Then they could not continue their journey of enlightenment and advancement when they are more fearful. And I think we need to create informed societies. When we are well informed, then we could have better decisions for ourselves and for all. That is required. Awareness is lacking. What are, as a devotees, what are rights of us as a devotee? We should have those things.
But you may be censored and told, no, you must listen to our authority. You have no freedom outside of us. You've experienced this, correct?
We are out of that vicious cycle now. Yes.
Oh, good to hear.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, going back to the Śaṅkhāsura story to wrap up, that he was very puffed up by this jewel that he had, this conch-shaped jewel on his head, and he was leading all the women away. I was remembering a comment by Srila Prabhupada where he said, "Bring all the beautiful women to Krishna." It's a famous quote from Srila Prabhupada. Not for our enjoyment, not for our pleasure, but for Krishna's pleasure. Bring all the beautiful women to him. But Śaṅkhāsura was leading them away for his own sense gratification. He was misleading them. And also I wanted to ask Mahabodhi, there's one pastime I heard from Bhagavat Maharaj, Mahabodhi Prabhu, where he was saying that Gaur Govinda Maharaj was playing as a little boy in his courtyard. And maybe you know the story much better than me, Mahabodhi Prabhu, but that Gaur Govinda Maharaj was actually playing with Krishna. Krishna appeared to him and he was playing with him and running around in the courtyard. Is that what you would call a spurti? And do you remember that story? You're on mute, Prabhu.
Yeah, I had to wait for I was talking to Nitya Leela and my camera froze and just kicked me out.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I guess I wasn't supposed to say what I was going to say, but yes, I heard that same story, that a spurti would be different. A spurti would be, I would have an appearance and I would be kind of involved in this in looking at this Leela, but then it would go. We're just like in Sanatana Goswami's courtyard also, there was a young boy that would play with Madan Mohan every morning, and his mother would make breakfast. And then Madan Mohan would eat breakfast, and then Sanatana Goswami got very angry that you're cooking and the Lord's taking, and it's kind of like a sweeper woman, you're not clean and all this kind of stuff. Then he realized, later that, no, you make whatever you make, because Krishna was completely playing with her son. And similarly, Gopalji was engaged in youthful playing with.
Excuse me, before you go to Gopalji, I'm trying to get more clarity on what you just finished saying. Sanatana Goswami, there was a boy playing at Madan Mohan's temple?
Yes, and who was playing with Madan Mohan and
Madan Mohan got off the altar?
Yeah, Madan Mohan. Well, I don't know if he got off the altar, but he was manifesting.
Okay.
As a young Gopal.
And the young boy there was the sweeper's son.
And they were playing out in the courtyard area every morning, and his mother would make breakfast, and he'd ask mother to make more for his friend, and so she did, just thinking that he wanted to eat more, and she was happy to do that, but actually was making it for Madan Mohan.
Wow.
And when Sanatana Goswami got wind was doing, and then he got angry at this because she wasn't clean, and then Krishna actually performed some pastimes where he understood that this was wrong, and then he went, no, you continue. So that boy had the opportunity of playing with Krishna, and Krishna was his friend, and Krishna appreciated the boy as his friend. So in a similar way, that Gopalji was playing with the young Gaur Govinda Maharaj as a boy, and his uncle.
Gopalji was the name of Gaur Govinda Maharaj's deity, correct?
Yes. And that family deity was being worshipped, and he'd always talk with his uncle when he was a devotee about how is Gopalji doing. He prayed to Gopalji before he had left this world about the difficulties had, let him know that he could go back if he wants. And so he had this relationship with Krishna since he was a young boy, which again, if we look at Gaur Govinda Maharaj, he is the only one of Prabhupada's disciples that Prabhupada spent 18 days personally with, locked inside a hut in Bhubaneswar, and gave all sorts of instructions to. No other of Prabhupada's disciples that was that done to. So that gives you a little bit of a insight of who.
Did he write any memoirs about those 18 days and what Prabhupada said to him?
I'm not aware of it. You'd have to ask, Bhagavad or Prem Prayojana or Ashram Maharaj. Maybe they're more, I think what he said is evident in Gaur Govinda Maharaj's books. If you read his books, there's so much nectar and that are included in there.
Thank you.
But he also was given a very, very difficult time by the GBC, who didn't want to see him as anything special or anything in that way. And he felt
he was also challenging them, right? Was he not, about what should be the standard of was that his issue? What is it? One should at least be madhyam or something like that.
There were several issues, but most of the issues were our philosophy. About
the non-fall of the jiva, for example, was that one of them?
I'm not sure if that was or not. Okay, but I mean, he certainly accepted Jiva Goswamis, as our whole Gaudiya Sampradaya does, outside of Jayadvaita Druta Karma and and Lad. That it's known that no one falls from Goloka Vrindavan. In Vaikuntha, they came for Leela, to know the story of Jai and Vijay. They came to, they had discussions. My Lord, he is the strongest. Oh, he is the strongest. We are warriors, but he is a better warrior than us. But we've never seen him fight. We've never, in Vaikuntha, no one's fighting. But yet we know he's the strongest Lord. He is the best of the fighters. In this way, the dialogue between Jai and Vijay would go. So Vishnu had actually heard that. And so he desired this Vira Ras. And so, of course, the whole story where Lakshmi had came and they were cursed. And of course, he walked and gave benediction to the 4 Kumaras, and that whole thing came there. When they came here, they came to enact Narayan's, benedictions, his desire for Vira Ras. Who can Vishnu fight with if not with his devotee? So even in that story where people in 7th canto, they're glorifying, well, Nrsimha came Prahlad, but actually did he come for Prahlad? He could have came anytime for Prahlad. But what did he do? When he killed Hiranyakasipu, he didn't sit on Indra's throne, but he sat on Hiranyakasipu's throne. And when he bifurcated his chest, what did he do? He held up the heart of Hiranyakasipu, because as he was a devotee. And that verse you said last week, even a spot, so that's, what is, I just forgot the verse already now, that, devotee, even a spot is not, so he was glorifying Hiranyakasipu, although Hiranyakasipu did like demoniac type things, but he did this to glorify the Lord. Into when he fought with him, then everyone, he was able to manifest as a half man, half lion, with all these different things, honoring Lord Brahma's, benedictions, but at the same time showing his supreme personality. And at that time, he saved Prahlad. But he could have came earlier when they were throwing Prahlad in the pit of into boiling oil, or when he was being trampled by the elephants, or they threw him off a cliff, or they stuck him, they put fire all around him. He could have came any of those times, but he came only then when Hiranyakasipu, was, who is this? Where did you get your power? Is he here? Is he in this pillar? And then he appeared. So in that glorification. So, and that glorification is also a glorification of Hiranyakasipu. So those who actually know our philosophy can see that that a devotee, no matter what his position is, he's always glorious if he's there serving Krishna, even though we may not understand that conception.
The inner, right? I want to thank Nahush Prabhu. He's saying that the famous book distributor Navina Nirada Prabhu, he has a class on Udemy. Is that like YouTube, Udemy, or is that like Telegram or?
Yeah, it's more like YouTube. It's a platform where people can post courses, and mostly they're like paid like $10 or so. But this one is he has a free course, and then he has a paid course where he can personally mentor somebody for book distribution.
Oh, Udemy.com, is that the name of the site?
Yes, Udemy, correct.
Okay. All right. So there you go, Nichilila, more support for you. Navina Nirada, by the way, spends a lot of time staying with Vaisheshika Prabhu because they're both very dedicated to book distribution and they enhance each other's service. Before we call it an evening, I'm sorry we didn't read any nectar of instruction. Maybe we'll get around to it on Monday because there's so many nice points to share. Nanda Patni, anybody? I don't know, Jiva Mukta's going. Anyone have any final thoughts to share before we call it a night? Nanda Patni, anything from you?
No, it's fine. I think it's very nice that Nichilila has asked this question for her particular community, and that she's able to get a lot of feedback from the group. That makes me feel happy.
Supporting Nichilila means supporting preaching to Pakistan, which of course would be very, very dear to very, very dear to Srila Prabhupada. Yeah.
And also I do appreciate the points that you made, Mahabodhi, about the different aspects of preaching, the different layers that you were mentioning, because even when I was in Bombay, we actually went to embassies, we went to factory owners, we went store to store, we went out in the street. We didn't actually cultivate like those of you who were, meeting various personnel in the higher ranks and in the library parties. But I also had experience of that in America, where I had to go to the senior professors in the different departments in the universities and present the Bhagavatam, which I think was also what the library party was doing years ago. I was doing it with the 10th canto when the 10th canto came out. And that was also wonderful, because one went to the Sanskrit department, the religious department, the philosophy department, and you had to present. You had to have some skills, and some diplomacy, and to be able to articulate and represent Srila Prabhupada. So that was another kind of layer, which I feel very grateful that I was exposed to doing.
I remember as Bhakta Glenn in the Chicago temple, probably winter of '76. It might have even been around Christmas marathon time. Satsvarup Maharaj arrived at our Shri Kishori temple in Chicago. Mahabodhi Prabhu, I'm quite sure he was present there. I think Mahabhuduti Prabhu, now Swami, was there. I remember Tattvavit was definitely there because I went to the laundromat with him and we did laundry for that party. And Ganesham Prabhu was there, Bhakti Tirtha Swami. And I'm not sure if Gokulananda Prabhu was there or not.
Gokulananda,
Kalakanta.
Also Kalakanta, also Sri Galim, also Sahotra Swami, who was Sahotra then. Also Shesha Prabhu, Prabhu. These were all library party members.
And I remember looking up to them like, wow, I thought Tripurari Swami and Vaisheshika and Pragosh and Manasuta, that they're really cool. But there's a whole other cool group of godbrothers here that are crack troops. They're like these commandos entering into Princeton and Yale and Harvard and you name it. And like, it was just beyond my comprehension. And I'd love to devote some time just to hearing from Mahabodhi Prabhu about his experiences of meeting these professors and, exactly, or his remembrances of other godbrothers meeting them and how we were able to convince them. I heard there was one funny story about Professor Dimmock. I don't know if he was, I don't know if it was him or maybe I'm mixing him up with another professor that was somewhat under the influence of alcohol. And he wrote a very nice testimony glorifying our books, or I don't know exactly the details of that story, but I just remember like being really impressed. And I used to get the tests. I still have them somewhere in my file here. Satsrup Maharaj would make tests for you on the Bhagavad Gita. And you would do those tests when you were in Chicago. And I took them as because I never, we didn't have that kind of scholastic academic approach in the temple itself. It was more like, banzai, hit the beach, hit O'Hare, and come back by 5:30 for, you got a half an hour to hand your Lakshmi in, take a shower. And 2 nights a week was bhajan night with Dhira Krishna. I don't know if you were there for any of that. Dhira Krishna Prabhu was playing his electric tambura, and Vishnu Dutt was playing amazing mridanga. And Uddhama Shloka Prabhu was leading a lot of the kirtans. And other nights it was Krishna book with a hot bowl of milk and maybe some popcorn. But those are my fond, faraway memories. Yes, go ahead, Prabhu.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking when you said that, we had to be extremely sharp because all day long we had to be able to answer professors and students and challenging questions and be able to throw stuff back to them and give logical answers and that. And we were all Ganesh and myself, we were both college graduates as well as student body officers in our respect Princeton and San Diego State. And so Prabhupada used us as a SWAT team. And he got very angry at Rupanuga. We wanted to join In God We Trust. And Prabhupada just torched Rupanuga Prabhu. You are trying to take my men, because we both had, several of us had revolutionary, experience backgrounds.
Say something. I'm not sure if Nitya Leela or Naush or Krishna Chandra, I'm not sure if they're aware of the In God We Trust party. It was a political party. Balavanta, Rupanuga. Who else was on that? Balavanta, Rupanuga, and was it Ambarish?
I think there was a Damodar, I think at that time. There was a few. It was launching to where it was going to be a political party with Krishna consciousness. And then the first aspect of it was going to be Balavanta was going to run for mayor of Atlanta.
Right.
Yeah. And then, in the future time, he may become president of the United States. There are all these different kinds of things going. But because we had so much background in running, in I don't know what you're going to call it, revolutionary, at least how to plan all sorts of, programs and how to, do those kinds of things. We wanted to be part of it because we still had some semblance of our, political
activism
backgrounds, the activism that we're still, we're attached to. And so, but Prabhupada said, absolutely not. Yeah, absolutely not. You cannot take my men. I'm using them for how I see fit. So we were happy.
In other words, he almost considered your program even more important, kind of, sort of.
Well, we were considered like his SWAT team, so
like commandos, like Marines.
Yeah, like that. So that we had there was no one did anything like this before, so we had to be. It wasn't like we were following anyone's, prior platform, except where Prabhupada put some books in Indian libraries and stuff. But, there was no thing written out how to talk to professors, how to give classes, how to sign up, how to get courses done in universities and libraries and, all these things we had to develop the science itself.
Maybe in the future, if we could just do another Zoom, because I would say it's very significant. I don't know if Amoga Leela managed to get any sets of Bhagavatams or Chaitanya Charitamrita into the major universities in Pakistan, Nitya Leela, but I would say that would be essential service to get the Prabhupada's Bhagavatam Chaitanya into, what is the major, is there a major university in Pakistan?
There are city-wise universities. I mean, every zone has their major university. And he tried a lot. His efforts are tremendous, no doubt. And in Lahore University, his influence is more rather than on Karachi. Yeah.
Is that the most prestigious university, Lahore?
Yes.
So could you please look into whether they have a set of
Sure.
Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita there?
Sure.
Because
Yeah,
Mahabodhi Prabhu, he can guide us in how.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah, if you contact me, I'm willing to help and have whatever way I could, whether it's Zoom or whether it's knowledge on distribution or whatever way I can assist. I think Prabhupada would be happy by my volunteering if you needed that help. Also, I think,
sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to say quickly that Radhanath Swami has really expanded his preaching because of so much focus on university students. He really focused on that a lot, right? He has Gauranga, and I forget the names of all the preachers that he has, but there's a lot of them from the universities, right, Mahabodhi Prabhu?
Yes. So that started out in his beginning of his programs. We set up his first programs in Ohio University and University of West Virginia and Ohio State. So when he first became a sannyas, I don't know, whatever it was, 1980 something, that's the first programs we set up. And then he did cooking courses. And then later, you know, he did the preaching from in there. So then there was lots of, I mean, there was like 50 students. I remember we'd come to, and, you know, I had the fortune at that time setting those programs up for him. So, you know, because of my familiarity how to do all this stuff after, you know, so many years for Prabhupada. So I was glad to see it. And he continued that in India, which it became, no one else was doing it at that time. And then, you know, from the whole universities, many devotees came from all those and later. So that was great on it. But I was thinking one thing, and that for the next programs, I probably shouldn't come only because this is a reading class. And I know, like,
no, you give so much life to this class. You bring so much to it.
Yeah, but I felt like I'm also the bane of Baba Tarini, who wants to, you know, wants to participate more. And then I think by my, you know, dominant personality, or I don't know, my ego, or I don't know what it is, but, you know, seems to have lots of answers to questions. And I feel that maybe that's, you know, she can't participate if Mahabodhi's speaking too much. And so then that's why I was saying I was just going to try to mute, just listen and try not say so much, because if I do, I know I've been asked to give instructions. So it's just a question of, I don't know really how to be quiet. So part of it is, so it may not be beneficial for a lot of devotees who want to participate.
I don't agree, but maybe we can learn how to communicate more with one another if someone wants to speak up and say, okay, could we get back to the reading? I mean, I just think it's a matter, I'm not saying you're not humble, you're certainly humble, but I just think we just need to have a level of communication that if someone is getting a little antsy about wanting to get back to Shastra, I mean, I like the spontaneity of these sessions, and I encourage the idea that, well, let's see where Krishna takes us in all of this. But Prabhupada gave the instruction to Baba Tarini to read Krishna book every day. So that's why she likes attending this. And certainly her husband, Hari Prabhu, he's very much like yourself. He's like an ocean of knowledge. He could take one paragraph like your good self and just expand for like 3 hours. He's very knowledgeable, just like you. So she's married to a devotee like that. She's married to somebody like that.
Maybe that's the escape she needs, to be able to like have her own chance to read, you know. Anyway, I'm concerned about that only because I usually don't shy away from questions or you know, or answers. And so, you know, this is in my classes, I only do it 3 nights a week because they're supposed to go like an hour or an hour and a half. Sometimes, you know, they'll go on more and more because people just keep asking questions.
Sure.
And sometimes we'll just read and I make them read and I won't comment, you know, and they're waiting for me to comment. And I said, no, just, you know, they want to hear your comments. And so sometimes I have to do that.
No, but you're only available to join us on Fridays, so I'll do my best to communicate with her to see what can work. But maybe she may not be inclined to come on Fridays. But I mean, it's not that I want to choose you over her. I mean, I don't want to be in that position at all.
Yeah,
but
I don't want that either.
But I'm also feeling very nourished by your presence. I'm grateful to hear from you. And if she has some issue, well, I mean, I don't want to say no, you can't come back because she wants to read more. Anyway, I hope Krishna will bless all of this, and I'll talk to Srila Prabhupada and petition Lord Chaitanya tonight, but to see what their answers are. But please don't think you're not welcome. Please don't think that way.
No, it's I don't think I'm not welcome. I'm just like, I'm like disruptive because I can answer these questions, and it's like people want to hear more. And I understand that because in my classes, we're reading Gopal Champu, we're reading, Govinda Lilamrita, we've been through, in 3 years, we've been through about 30 books. So,
wow.
people.
Wow. No, I wanted to come, but I cannot call America. But I've heard that there's a way to have a conference call through a number.
We're on a free conference. It's a free conference number. I don't know why you can't. I've got people coming from all over.
That's through a cell phone, right? You have to call.
Dialing from phone. No, you can. I don't know.
Because when I try to call your number, you say, "I'm sorry, you don't have enough money to pay for this long distance call to America."
Oh, that means your plan. Your plan.
Yeah, I have a limited plan. I have limited funds.
Yeah.
I can't call outside of America, Canada, unless it's WhatsApp, unless it's Zoom.
There is this app which is called free conference call. So that app can be used to make calls, like free conference calls, and I guess anybody can join from anywhere.
That's what this is on. My classes are on that. So
free conference call app, is it on that one? Oh,
yes.
Then Gaura Prabhu, you can join. So free conference call.
He may not be able to call to America on those, depending on his plan. If his plan only allows so much long distance, even though it's a long distance free conference call, he may not be able to use it based on his plan. And
I will look into this.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to call it a night. It's almost 10 o'clock here. Thank you so much for everyone, your contributions, and look forward to continuing through the Krishna book. Thank you, Nitya Lila, for coming. We're all preachers for Pakistan Yatra for Prahlada Desh. Is that correct?
Yes.
Prahlada Desh. Yeah, I don't know if you know Mahabodhi Prabhu, but Prahlad Maharaj appeared in Pakistan. That's where his Prahlada Desh is, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I know where Hiranyakasipu's palace on this planet was in Ahobilam, in South India, in there. But Prahlad is also from Satyuga, so he was also in another higher planetary system as well, and had his representation here. So those
they
are
also
two different.
say Love and Kush was from Lahore.
Yeah.
So Love and Kush, they have history in Lahore, which is in Pakistan now.
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, Nitya Lila, I hope you have my email or my. I think
I gave her everything. I gave you everything, right, Nitya Lila?
Yes, I got it.
So it's up to you. If you need my help, you can let me know. I'll be glad to assist.
Yeah.
And anyway, I offer my Dandavat pranams and to all the devotees. Kripa Sindhu Vacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Radhe Radhe.
Nitai Gaur Premanandi.
Hari Hari Bo. Jai everyone. Hari Bo.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.